The December 8th, 2020 regular meeting of the Mentor Exempted Village Board of Education is called to order. This meeting is being held in accordance with Section 3313.15 of the Ohio Revised Code. Mr. Wilson, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Briner?
Here.
Mr. Buckley?
Here.
Mrs. Hassan?
Present.
Ms. Jisling?
Present.
Mr. Tuttle?
Present.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to welcome everyone to the December 8th, 2020 regular meeting of the Mentor Exempted Village Board of Education. Prior to this evening, each board member has received for their review and consideration the agenda and materials associated with each agenda item for the board's approval via the district's paperless Board of Education agenda system, Board Docs. The public can access the agenda through the school's district's website. The agenda is available through the district's website for public viewing the Sunday prior to the board meeting. Board members have the opportunity to call the superintendent and chief financial officer for information concerning agenda items and to request, if needed, additional information. This meeting is being video conferenced live and can be accessed at youtube.com/user/Cardinal TV Mentor Ohio. Tonight's meeting will not have public participation. The public can email the board members, superintendent, and chief financial officer with any comments or questions. Email addresses and a telephone number can be found on the website www.mentorschools.net. This meeting is being televised on a delayed basis and will be shown on Spectrum Cable Channel 1026 in Mentor and Channel 1025 in Mentor on the Lake. This meeting is also being videotaped and will be shown on our YouTube channel, Cardinal TV Mentor Ohio. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Who made the motion?
Mary.
Mary, okay, thank you. Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mrs. Hassan?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes. Next on the agenda is a resolution entitled Electronic Meetings Pursuant to HB 404.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Mrs. Hassan?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes. Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report and recommendations. Mr. Porter.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President and members of the board. I have the following recommendations listed under the consent agenda and recommend approval of item 5A1.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Briner?
Yes.
Ms. Jisling?
Yes.
Mrs. Hassan?
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. President and members of the board, this evening we are pleased to recognize several Mentor High School students for their outstanding achievement in the AP Capstone program. In its 6th year at Mentor High School, AP Capstone is a 2-year program built on the foundation of 2 courses, AP Seminar and AP Research. AP Seminar is a 10th grade English class. Students investigate real-world issues from multiple perspectives gathering and analyzing information from various sources in order to develop credible, evidence-based arguments. By learning how to conduct scholarly research and writing academic papers and AP seminar, students develop the skills for the second year of the capstone program, AP Research. AP Research is an elective for 11th or 12th graders where students conduct an individual study in the field of their choice. The course cultivates the skills and discipline necessary to conduct independent research in order to produce and defend a scholarly academic thesis. Our capstone courses at Mentor High School have nearly a 100% AP score passing rate and serve as a platform for specialized honors diploma portfolios, including the STEM, social studies, and civics engagement and arts diplomas. Since 2018, 12 Mentor High School students have had their work published in the Journal of Student Research, 4 of them just this year. And although the video clips you will see here shortly are from the students' AP seminar year, because modifications were made for last year's AP research presentations due to COVID, it is their work in the highest level that earned this impressive academic achievement. Let's turn our attention to a video to meet these exceptional Mentor High School students.
Congratulations to 4 Mentor High School students who earned publication of their AP research work in the National Journal of Student Research. This is an impressive accomplishment earned by Sarah Freeman, Erin Knapp, Evan Lewis, and Amanda Miles. The Journal of Student Research is devoted to the rapid dissemination of current research on a wide variety of topics. Students submit their work, and after a rigorous evaluation process, only the most well-done, new, and interesting articles with ample evidence and support are chosen for publication.
Developing nations, pictured in yellow, account for
Sarah Freeman's hard work, research, findings, and writing earned publication in the Journal of Student Research for her article called Musical Variables and Color Association in Classical Music.
one effect is the bloodborne pathogens.
Erin Knapp's in-depth investigation into what causes hospital-acquired infections and the best cleaning methods for wheelchairs in hospitals landed her article titled The Effects of Cleaning Solutions on Bacteria Concentration on Hospital Wheelchairs in the journal as well.
Surrounding this research question are 3 very connected lenses of the scientific.
Evan Lewis conducted a number of scientific experiments stemming from interest in climate change for his research featured in the article called The Effect of a Biomass Increase on the Carbon Fixation Rates of A. thaliana, which ultimately led to publication in the journal.
A greater demand for resources puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the
And Amanda Miles decided to take a look into stereotypes and gender inequality in her article, Gender Bias in High School Congressional Debate Scores. Her studies concluded that there is no significant gender disparity in the scoring of high school congressional debate. You can learn more about our students' research and findings by reading their articles in full, where they are published in the National Journal of Student Research. Just visit jofsr.org. Congratulations again, Sarah, Erin, Evan, and Amanda. Your hard work and dedication toward your academics is inspiring. We are proud of you.
We are very proud of these students for their academic success. Congratulations to each of them and to their teachers, Mrs. Coleman and Mrs. Tolarczyk. Mr. President and members of the board, I am recommending approval of agenda item C1 related to certified personnel and C2 and C3, both related to human resource matters.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Oh, I missed a mover. I apologize.
That was Mary.
Mary, thank you. Mrs. Briner,
Yes.
Ms. Jesling,
Yes.
Mrs. Hassan,
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle,
Tom, you're on mute. There you go.
Yes.
Mr. Buckley.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next up.
This concludes my portion of tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Porter.
Mr.
Next,
Porter, wait, just before we go on, those students did such an exceptional job. What a wonderful tribute to their hard work. I was just going to ask, you said 12 students have been published in the journal. About how many capstone students do we have that do that 2-year cycle?
I don't know the exact numbers, but I can get that to you.
Just was curious, but thank you so much, and congratulations to them and their teachers.
Thank you.
next on the agenda is Board of Education report and recommendations. Section A, business. On the agenda says appointment of President Pro Tem for the January 12th, 2021 organizational. Dan, do you, in looking at our past, we had a rotation. Do you, if looking at that rotation, who's up next?
Generally, we appoint the vice president to preside over the meeting, and then with the presumption that they will become president for the next calendar year.
Now, that would have been Deanne.
Right.
So who would have followed Deanne? Do you know that, Dan?
Oh boy, no, I don't offhand. I don't know.
I think it's Mary, if I remember correctly.
I believe that may be so.
That's what I thought. Yeah. I thought that also.
So we'll put Mary in. All right, and that can be something you can declare, Ken, as board president. Doesn't require a vote.
Okay. And then I'm assuming the rotation would then be after Mary would be Tom as vice president?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, then, then I appoint Mary as president pro term for the January 12th, 2021 organizational meeting. And at the same time, thank Virginia for filling in for Deanne this year.
So
Next,
can I ask a question?
sure.
Here.
So how does the rotation works? Like, where will I be? Because I just started in the middle. So where do I stand in the process of rotation?
Let's see. Well, you would be in place if Deanne was still there. So she would have followed me if I'm still on the board. So it'll be a while yet. We will have you prepared.
Yeah, yes.
Ambreen, if you're ready after Tom's term, then maybe you'll be ready, at that point. Usually, once you've been on the board for maybe a couple of years, you usually step up. But again, if you're ready.
Yeah.
So we kind of leave that up to you. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
For elections, right? No?
Next would be the approval of the January 12th meetings, 6:30 organizational meeting, 6:45 the tax budget meeting, and 7 o'clock would be the regular meeting. And that would occur on January 12th.
So moved.
Second,
Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mr. Tuttle,
Yes.
Ms. Jisling,
yes.
Mrs. Briner,
Yes.
Mrs. Hassan,
Yes.
Mr. Buckley.
Yes. Next on the agenda is the first reading of the following Board of Education policy, criteria consideration for tax abatement requests. Mr. Wilson, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Over the various meetings we had, both in small groups and with the entire board, there was an expressed desire to institutionalize how we would consider supporting City of Mentor request or City of Mentor on the Lake request for agreeing to tax abatements or tax incentives that exceeded the authority of the city to do, which is generally less than 10 years and less than 75% of all taxes. Anything above that then requires Board of Education consent. So working with Mr. Buckley, we developed this policy that would identify the key points the board would consider in making a determination on whether or not to support a tax incentive as recommended from the city. And you will see in there that some of the key considerations reflect those things that surfaced and were important to the board in discussing the Uptown Mentor development project. So we've done this with the hopes that we can institutionalize a more formal process and then inform both cities of this is the type of information we'd like to receive when a request is presented to us.
I thought the new policy draft was very good. I thought it covered the items that we discussed, and Ken had listed them very nicely, and I was pleased with the comprehensive considerations that it had.
No, and I think that'll help us with the structure in the future.
Thanks, Ken.
And we don't vote on that tonight, correct, Dan?
Correct. It's just our board policy, on-board policies requires a presentation and first reading that doesn't require a vote, and then a second reading at the next month's meeting. And again, if there's no comments or changes, then a vote to adopt. So no other action is needed tonight.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is the appointment of the following citizen financial advisory members. Mr. Wilson, will you speak to that?
Yes, we have two current members whose terms expire. There are 5 members on the board or on the committee, and we have staggered terms to ensure institutional history is preserved. Both Adam and John have agreed to request reappointment to the board. They both attended all meetings and have provided good comments and inputs both at the meetings themselves and in advance of the meetings and follow up to the meetings. And we would encourage the board to consider their reappointment. You may remember that the Citizens Financial Advisory Committee was created as we were recovering from our fiscal crisis in 2004 with a goal of tapping into community members that had extensive business backgrounds to help make recommendations to the board and pass judgment on key financial matters involving the school district, most particularly the budget and the fiscal projections, but occasionally going further. And in fact, the establishment of our general fund operating reserve was something that the committee was actively involved with along with the board. So we've been, John and Adam both have been very good members, and I think it would be great if we could reappoint them.
Could I have a motion to reappoint the two, John and Adam?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Ms. Jisling,
Yes.
Mrs. Briner,
Yes.
Mrs. Hassan,
yes,
Mr. Tuttle,
Yes.
Mr. Buckley.
Yes. Next on the agenda is the legislative report. Mr. Tuttle.
Thank you, Mr. Buckley. It's an interesting report. The topic is getting pushed finally after a number of years, and that's the Ed Choice Voucher Program. And it's the basis for a fair school funding plan. You'll see in the report I've distributed, it's moving along, but I don't know if it got voted today by the Senate. I know it passed the House, and then it goes to the Senate, and they're having a hearing. They had one today, and perhaps they voted. I don't believe they did, but that would be regarding Senate Bill 376. Now, let me read that beginning paragraph on the December state report. So, changes to the eligibility for Ed Choice Voucher Program in lame duck session. Governor Mike DeWine signed Senate Bill 89, a bill that changed the students' eligibility criteria for the Educational Choice Voucher Program. You'll recall in November, I reported on those changes that were made, and we were waiting to hear that, hope that Governor would sign that. The new criteria, which were amended in the bill during a conference committee, requires two factors in order for a student to be eligible. First, the school building must be in the lowest 20% of buildings based upon the performance index ratings for the 2017-18 and 2018 and 19 school years. Second, the school building is operated by a school district that has an enrollment of at least 20% Title I eligible students. Based upon those two factors, the number of eligible school buildings for performance-based vouchers for 2021 to 22 year would be 473. This is a reduction from 1,227 school buildings eligibility list for fiscal year 2021. The bill also increases the poverty threshold from 200 to 250% for the income-based voucher program eligibility. OSBA joined with the Ohio Association of School Business Officials and the Buckeye Association of School Admins to express concerns with the legislation. But it has moved, it should be moving forward. You all received from Jennifer Hogue an update on this topic of the 376. And I'll read just a little bit about that. And it's interesting. She makes a statement. This is one of the most important and critical weeks we have ever seen in education. The House of Representatives passed House Bill 305, the Fair School Funding Plan, by an 87-8 vote last Thursday. The plan now is teed up for action by the Senate. Its companion bill is Senate Bill 376. Senate had just several days left to pass that Senate Bill 376, which defines and funds an adequate and equitable education for all students and answers the 23-year-old DeRolf litigation. That 23 years seems like an eternity to get to this point, and it's ever so close. And the changes, it does seem right and equitable. There's a list that was distributed. I don't know if I gave you that address last November, but it really demonstrates where the problems are with this equitable education. And you see the list of the major cities that have this problem. And it's about time something addresses that. I printed just the page now here in Lake County. For your information, there's only one school system in Lake County eligible, and what makes that tease up that eligibility are those factors, obviously, and that's the Painesville City local school districts. No other school system in Lake County has qualified for this list, and thank God that we all do a good job and the results are really positive, and it demonstrates that. But it's high time, it's just my opinion, that something needs to be done for those school districts that have the poverty issue in the grades and the results. So any comments on that? Otherwise, I'll move on to the next topic on there. Okay, so after 9 hearings, substitute House Bill 305, the Fair School Funding Plan, received the required votes to be voted out of the House Finance Committee. The bill must receive a floor vote in the House before moving to the House Senate. Meanwhile, the Senate Finance Committee has also been working on the Fair School Funding Plan in the form of companion bill SB 376, and I talked about that earlier. So it closely resembles the provisions of Senate or House Bill 305. So cross your fingers. Both the House and the Ohio Senate have limited session days scheduled for the remainder of the year. So they really need to be prodded along. In that email you received from Jennifer Hogue yesterday, she gave us some phone numbers to contact. So I would suggest dialing that up tomorrow and take the time and prod them along. So next on the update, the Senate bill providing additional flexibility to school districts is passed by committee. The Senate Education Committee finalized its work on Senate Bill 358, a bill that provides school districts flexibility and relief into the 2021 school year amid the COVID-19 pandemic. This is critical. Those flexibilities pertain to graduation requirements, third grade reading guarantee mandates, an exemption from administering state assessments, and the prohibition of the Ohio Department of Education from issuing report card grades. The bill also extends a safe harbor from sanctions and penalties, key, critical, that's my input, from report card grades, and provides a process for a school to transition out of academic distress commission control. And also, I'm sure you're all well aware of this, the open meeting flexibility extended before the deadline expired. DeWine signed the House Bill 404 that will extend the ability of public bodies such as ours, including boards of education, to hold and attend meetings or hearings via electronic technology. The bill was signed with an emergency clause that went into effect immediately upon DeWine's signature on November 23rd. The language in House Bill 197 that originally provided this flexibility was set to expire on December 1st. The new deadline provides House Bill 404 extends that flexibility to July 1st, 2021. And I'm sure we're all crossing our fingers that COVID will be under control with all the vaccines and the ability to do that. And we won't have to worry about past July 1st, 2021. And that's it. That's what I wanted to cover on the report. Do you have any questions, input? Anyone? Dan?
No.
Mr. Porter?
I think you spoke very clearly on this is the furthest school funding reform's gotten since the Ohio Supreme Court decision 20 years ago, and would represent a much more research-based way of identifying funding for K-12 education, with recognizing the single most important thing schools spend money on are for classroom teachers, and that's kind of the fundamental basis, and then recognizing other vital staff members and faculty members that support student learning. So we're very hopeful. However, Senate Finance Chairman Matt Dolan here from Northeast Ohio has some reservations about approving it outside of the discussions that will begin in January on the new 2-year budget bill. But we're hopeful that his colleagues and all those interested parties will help him understand the urgency here to get this with all the momentum built and significant enhancements to the whole school funding process, that something happen as soon as possible.
Dan, that's interesting that you bring up Matt Dolan. How long has he been an elected official?
Oh, boy.
He's not been around since DeRolf.
No, I don't believe, no, he hasn't had that long a tenure. He's been there for a little while, but if I had to guess, I would guess around 10 years, but I
Okay.
would have to look that up. But certainly he was not in the legislature when DeRolf was, came down from the Ohio Supreme Court.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Tuttle. Next on the agenda is the Chief Financial Officer's reports and recommendations. Mr. Wilson.
Yes, I recommend the board approve agenda items 7A through F. And I would note that the monthly financials reflect we continue to have a fairly good performance through 5 months of the fiscal year. The COVID impact has been factored into the budget to some degree and has not been worse than we had anticipated at this point. Item F is a request to reclassify 2 cash advances we made to the food service fund, one in the amount of $200,000 back on August 11th and the second $300,000 on July 23rd. Recognizing that our continued need to not bring all students back in school all day, every day has had a dramatic impact on the revenue stream for food service. And again, as the fluidity of our situation makes it hard to predict, we started with the hope that we would advance funds and that we would be able to bring students back and then be able to reimburse ourselves. But now that we're 5 months into it and looking out even further, it doesn't appear that they're going to have the ability to generate enough income to refund this money. So this resolution is not a normal monthly resolution, but one that recognizes, and again, it was budgeted for when we adopted the annual budget as an advance, but in this case, we're asking that we don't expect a return and book it as a actual transfer of funds to keep us in compliance with the Ohio Revised Code.
Dan, I had one question about that. I was so impressed with the number of meals that have been distributed and wanting to make sure that families with children are being able to feed them. Is that being reimbursed through the federal system for meals distributed? I know there was not a means testing, but how did that work?
Yes, we do get reimbursement from special federal legislation that provided supplemental funding. We've always been entitled to some federal reimbursement for lunches for free and reduced eligible students, and then that was expanded into special legislation. Where we experience our primary revenue loss is in those a la carte purchases and extra purchases that students do that are outside the what's the government labels as type A lunch that meets the nutritional standards. So this recognizes that additional revenue we were able to generate outside the type A lunch has not been available to food service. It has nothing to do with the management of the food service fund. It's just a reality of where we are now.
Thanks.
Good question. Thank you, Jenny. Just a comment. This is not unique to Mentor. From what I'm hearing and I'm seeing, other school districts in the surrounding area are doing the same thing. And thankfully, because there is a need out there to feed these kids and these families. So, we all know that a lot of kids rely on the school lunch for their meals. So Like I said, it's not something that's unique to Mentor. I see it in other schools in the area doing the same thing. So thankfully, we have the ability to do that, and kids are getting taken care of.
Yes.
Is,
Real tip of the hat to the food service team
Yeah.
and Jenny Vaccaro for, this is, talk about building the plane in the air, trying to make that happen. But it's so comforting to know that that's in place for kids and families. So thanks, Mary.
Yeah. Right. Thanks, Dan.
could I have a motion to approve the financial resolutions that were presented?
So moved.
Second,
Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mrs. Briner,
Yes.
Mr. Tuttle,
yes.
Mrs. Hassan,
yes,
Ms. Jisling,
Yes.
Mr. Buckley.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is any unfinished business.
If I may interject quickly, an answer to Ms. Jessling's earlier question. AP Research has about 90 students in it this year, AP Seminar 110.
Wow.
We added a section of AP Seminar, if I'm remembering correctly, because we want even more students to have the opportunity to take that, get into that cycle of courses.
That's
That's
awesome.
exciting because that's climbing toward 20% of our senior class
Yeah.
who would have had that experience before
That
they
is great.
graduate. So really a big tip of the hat to all the people involved in that, from the administrative team through the instructional, the team. That's wonderful.
That's nice to see those kids participating in that. That's great.
Next on the agenda, new business. Is there any new business that needs to come before the board? Not hearing any. Could I have a motion to move into the executive session?
So
Will we-
moved.
Second,
Oh, I interrupted you, Ken. Go ahead, finish the resolution. Pardon me.
Well, the purpose is that we're going to discuss the superintendent's employment contract. And Mr. Wilson, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Briner,
Yes.
Mrs. Hassan,
yes.
Ms. Jisling,
yes.